This video was brought to you by Wrightly So, the right place for nerdy insight. You know when you're sitting there, playing a video game, and some music comes on and you're immediately like, yeah! Yeah! Well, Persona is known for, among other things, it's awesome gameplay and even better music. But you know, seriously, I don't think anyone has done a true retrospective of the Persona music and discussed why it's so great. What makes the Persona music tick? What makes it so... So that's what our goal is today. And to do that, we're going to have to break down how Persona games operate. Now, keep in mind, I'll almost entirely only be talking about Persona 3, 4, and 5 in this retrospective, so, sorry, P1 and 2 fans. So, Persona 3, 4, and 5 have a very simple but effective formula that makes them so interesting as an ongoing video game series, and that is mood-driving color theory. Now, we could go on forever about the in-depth uses of color that Persona uses, but since this isn't an art class and that is not what we're here to talk about, we'll talk about the three main colors used in these three games: blue, yellow, and red, respectively. If those three specific colors remind you of something important, that may be because you've remembered that these three hues of light are the primary colors in color theory. This is very important in artistry and tone, because these games basically derive their whole plot and dynamic from the moods these three colors exude. But what does that mean, Wilbot? I hear you proclaim. I was just about to get to that, I retort, you impatient piece of shit. It means that in art, each one of these three colors inherently carries a feeling within them. Blue sets up a mood of sadness, hence the music genre blues, and why Blue from Blue's Clues gets depressed and dies. Yellow brings in a feeling of happiness, of joviality and glee, something I've missed inside me for years now. And lastly, red makes anger. It just makes you want to hit stuff. And the Persona series not only carries these colored elements in the progression of their story, but within their powers as well. Persona 3 receives their powers through the overwhelming sadness within them, and at the end, the main character gets owned and fucking kills himself. Persona 4 receives their persona through being content with who they are, and accepting that they are all their own detriments to society. And of course, Persona 5 receives their persona by getting really pissed off. I feel like there's a slight imbalance here. So what does that all have to do with music? Well, just about every piece in all Persona music carries this tone with it, and it's freaking awesome! Every song in Persona 3 either binges on pianos and sadness, or funky rap and hip-hop to counteract and contradict the sad and dark tone of its world. Every song in Persona 4 creates J-poppy serenades, coupled with beautiful pieces that feel like you're realizing your true self. And every song in Persona 5 makes you feel, oh no, stop it, you'll never see it coming! So enough prelude. Where do we start? Well, how about we start at the beginning of it all? No, not that far. Fast forward. Yeah, there. That's where we want to start. I'll present my cases section by section, starting with the intros and title screen music, beginning with Burn My Dread, the perfect way to start an awkward transition point from Persona 1 and 2. This theme is wonderful at capturing what the atmosphere of Persona 3 is, presenting a very edgy, somber, and sad theme full of minor chords. The angsty melody of the beginning blasts out into true teenage rock towards the chorus with a belting, which carries over to the battle music, signifying their want to break from their sadness and just show the world what they're made of. This theme is immediately complemented by the title screen's theme, brand new... Oh, hold on, why is the voice someone calls playing? It's moments like these where I forget that Persona 3 FES is ever so slightly different from the regular Persona 3. Fuck it, we're talking about brand new days anyway, everyone knows it, everyone probably played Persona 3 FES or the portable, we're talking about that. Now, the title screen, to go along with the somber feeling of the game, gives a sad and melancholic piano piece just as jam-packed with minor chords as Burn My Dread. Now switching over to Persona 4, where we enter into the game with the track Pursuing My True Self. This track differentiates itself from Persona 3 tonally with its J-pop, upbeat style, making it feel much lighter and happy than the rock heard in Burn My Dread. While minor chords would usually portray a sadder feeling, the chords played by the piano at the very beginning of the song is immediately followed by a jovial trumpet section that makes the song sound uplifting, yet still keeping its darker tone along the way with its open fifths. This means that there are no chords to indicate minors or majors, creating a sense of ambiguity. This, coupled with its vocals that complement both the happy and melancholic feels of the song, creates the perfect atmosphere to jump into a year of investigating murders. This, however, doesn't mean the game has forgotten about Persona 3. Though much more punchy, Persona 4's Corner of Memories flows throughout the screen in a similar fashion as Persona 3's Brand New Days, with the cast of Persona 4 looming throughout a crowded school hallway, drenched in different shades of yellow. The emotion within Corner of Memories, instead of following Persona 3's immediate sad and depressing tone, more sounds like an emotional march and directly references the game's ending theme, Nevermore. Later. This ties it musically in with the rest of the songs, but also bridges the gaps between the screen and opening tonally. Side note, I do have to say, Persona 4 knew exactly how much yellow they needed to put in to make their aesthetic all while not looking like someone pissed all over the screen. Lastly on our intro train is Persona 5, pun totally intended. Its opening, Wake Up, Get Out There, ditches the previous J-rock and J-pop genres that flowed throughout the predecessors and instead blasts out with jazzy electric piano playing a flat 3-4-1 chord progression, which gives it a lively and upbeat tone to complement its red, spastic visuals. While jazzy chords have never been a stranger to the Persona series, i.e. Persona 4, Persona 5 makes it more of a statement this time by having said chords flow all throughout the song to pump you up while establishing these tones with its singing, drums, and piano. Of course, in true and traditional Persona fashion, the darker tones show in its chord shift in the middle, dropped off by the line, "It's useless," showing that there will be harder times to come in this game. By the way, you should also notice that the singer for every Persona game is always the same female singer, giving a nice singularity to the soundtracks of each game. Also keep in mind the electric piano replacing traditionally acoustic pieces, because that's going to be a recurring theme in Persona 5 music. Speaking of which, Persona 5's title screen, Phantom, shows tonally that the game intends to be quite comfortably different from its predecessors. This track keeps the same type of tone that the intro gives in being jazzy and upbeat, though, interestingly enough, still being rife with minor chords, being yet another track that sounds abnormally up-tempo despite being primarily minor. Most interesting of all, however, is that it takes a note from Persona 4 in the leitmotif department, because you can hear similar chord progressions of Persona 5's ending theme, Hoshito Bakurato. What is a leitmotif, you may be wondering? Well, put simply, a leitmotif is a music phrase within a piece of media that consistently is referenced back. Usually it's used to give a feeling of singularity to something, but it can also be used to reference a character or idea. Think Harry Potter's theme, or the Back to the Future thing, or Sailor Moon's thing. Moving on, we can't talk about Persona music without talking about its sad music, because that's what Persona is about at the end of the day. Getting sad and triumphing over said sadness to kick some ass! So let's just start with the arguably most depressing of the bunch, Persona 3. Oh god, do we have so many songs to cover with Persona 3 when it comes to depressing music. Which makes sense because of its whole blue motif. I think it's best that we start with Memories of the School, the main track played within most emotional scenes in Persona 3. along with the stripped version of Living with Determination that replaces it every so often. Well, I guess structurally, it's more accurate to say Memories of the School plays every time a sad backstory is told within a social link, which tonally means it isn't frequently played at all. I'm so sorry I couldn't publish your book, son guy. I had like 10 other social links to do, and like, I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. Lost my composure there. As I was saying, the piece is played by an electric piano, much less synthesized than Persona 5's usual music bases. Not to mention, this is one of Persona's many heavy instrumental symbolisms. The piano is echoey and acoustic, not to mention lonely and isolated, being one of how the characters felt throughout the game. The track plays with nothing to accompany its feelings, but instead drags out its depressing minor chords. I won't go into Living with Determination yet because I think that's a more uplifting track despite its primarily having minor chords as well, so I will instead turn to the track that plays towards the ending half of the game that is so good and wrenches at my heart every time I hear it. It's just Memories of the City is a sparingly used track played when you are walking around, of all freaking things, that is filled with beautifully sad minor chords played by piano and strings that just encapsulates the dread of death and despair and fuckboy death gods looming in the distance. All is not totally bleak in this track, however, because some guitar and drums begin to play like a ray of hope shining through bitter, cold, and sad clouds to not make you feel as much like you want to commit mass destruction on your soul. This track is a lot more akin to the likes of Persona 4 and 5 sad music, but with how sparingly it's used, it would be difficult to say that the same intent was in mind. Speaking of Persona 4, I'll Face Myself, the second version, and gives a giant middle finger to Persona 3's Memories of the School and says, "The fuck are you sad about? Look at this piss yellow, baby!" as it busts through the door with a soul and jazz fusion piano melody. The melancholic feel of the minor chords is blissfully interrupted by the lead motif of Nevermore, whipping its melody out, signifying the character's understanding of themselves, and they will nevermore doubt themselves and find happiness in their life in whatever way possible. Meanwhile, Junpei from Persona 3 becomes a baseball coach. This seems fair.
Fuck you! Fuck all 6 of you! 1, 2, 3, and all of your personas, so fuck for
you know I've got more than one, right?
Sunset Bridge from Persona 5, however, is a bit of an oddball of the three because while the soothing synthetic pianos and drums mixed with moving chords from an electric guitar certainly pull off a sad vibe with its minor chords, it also mainly gives a sense of thoughtful contemplation reflecting the game's rebellious attitude of breaking away from the constraints of society and finding happiness within yourself. There is an explicit need for an overly sad mood like the other two games because many times the characters don't react to situations through their sadness, but through sheer will and determination to overcome their fate. You can hear hints of the Hoshito Bokurato leitmotif in this as well, though not as much as, say, I'll Face Myself with Nevermore. So a lot of the music I've been talking about has been in a set structure, and though there's a lot more music I would like to talk about, I think it would be good to spend a little time on highlights and then move on to the ending themes of the Persona games. No worries, no spoilers will be presented throughout the video other than Persona 3 because, I mean, come on. I'm merely going to quickly go through these because I don't have a lot to say about them. I just think they're kinda cool and should be mentioned, so let's talk about some great pieces from each game. So when you go to fight Nyx with your best team of half non-human misfits, Aigis, Ken, and Koromaru, the best boss theme ever begins to play, the battle for everyone's soul, an obvious reference to the Velvet Room themes, the poem for everyone's soul. Really, there isn't a whole lot more to say about it other than it's a great piece that drives all the pieces of Persona 3 together into a beautiful rock opera. There is Living with Determination, that's an awesome mash of the themes that play throughout Tartarus, and a sad piano melody with a beat backing it that's also similar to the Tartarus tracks. Persona 4's I'll Face Myself is a great piece of its own because of how much it carries itself throughout so much of the music. Lastly, while Persona 5 has a lot of great tracks, there isn't a song worth mentioning more than Swear to My Bones in terms of importance in the overall leitmotif and vision of the game. This song is really only used when you max out the social links of a party member and their persona evolves. It starts out with acoustic piano and strings, which is interesting because it's one of the few uses of acoustic piano you'll hear in the game. The major combo of piano strings and drums that come in, making it serve as kind of a musical callback to the hopeful feeling of all of Persona 5, to emphasize that there's still good in the world and the characters can find it. But I guess if you want a song a little less boring to mention, Rivers in the Desert is just a generally awesome song.
A river in a dry land, the left is in a lost land, a heartbeat for a demon, a wages in a strange land.
Yeah, we done here? I think that's about it on honorable mentions. All three games have far more tracks that are great, but in terms of importance, I think these are the best to cover. Persona 3 kind of having the most left out in terms of great motifing, because my god, there is a lot, but with that, let's move on to ending themes. So after all is said and done in Persona 3, this ending theme, Memories of You, is kind of an odd one from the series. Like, it's kind of odd because out of all three ending themes, this one is the most ambiguously happy and almost cheery with its upbeat feeling with major tones. The piano melody is a direct reference to Memories of the City with lyrics that mimic Memories of the School, showing that this is the culmination of all the difficulties that you face throughout the game. While initially you might find it an odd choice, I definitely argue that it was a direct contrast to the feeling of deep, dark sadness that Burn My Dread provides. The much more somber lyrics, when read, reflect the story of never forgetting those who have been lost and possibly being able to see them again someday. Sending the final message of Persona 3, show hope in the face of death and despair. Moving on from that is my personal favorite ending theme from the three games, Nevermore, from Persona 4.
無慈悲な言葉だけがでたらめに街に溢れてる Nevermore 切なく流れてた声
The theme has similar soulful singing to Memories of You from Persona 3. However, it starts off with a much more jazzy and funky rhythmic section, consisting of a moving, smooth jazz bass line, electric guitar, horns, pianos, and drums, making the theme feel much more fulfilled. Now, obviously, as said before, the hopeful upbeat of I'll Face Myself second version is the exact same progression as Nevermore, which serves as the main chorus of the song. The up and down chord progression of 5s and 1s are also a leitmotif call-out of Pursuing My True Self, though in a different key, and to make an even bigger full circle in musical motifing, it also goes back to reference Corner of Memories, the very first theme you hear in the game. It's a great track that makes you feel like you've won, and as the song fades out at the very end, you can feel content as the main character rolls out on the train that he came in on. Last but certainly not least on this adventure is Persona 5's Hoshito Bakurato, that starts off with a beautifully somber and slow electric piano and drums. The first notes that hit reflect back to the menu theme, Phantom, and once the singing starts to come in, you hear the drums and smooth bass line start up, showing you've gotten to a calm, happy ending, as the main characters have overcome all their problems and now free to enjoy a more beautifully happy life.
終わらない日々居場所をなくして
As the song continues, the electric guitar and drums get heavy, and the singer becomes more intense and soulful in a style reflecting the throes of Swear to My Bones. The balance between these soulful tunes and the calmness of the opening marks the rest of the song, as it showcases the game's combination of fulfillment and passion. a story more intense than Persona 4 and more ambiguous than Persona 3. Persona 5's ending theme, much like the game in general, breaks away from Persona 3 and Persona 4 to be its own game, having reflections of the past yet stepping comfortably out on its own in terms of tone, story, and, of course, music, just as the characters themselves step away from what society deems to be correct in order to find justice and fulfillment in their own lives. Seems like you made it to the end. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me ramble about Persona. I researched this for about 2 months, and really this whole thing was a big passion project on my part, so I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I loved making it. This is my personal first time editing, so I hope it wasn't too obvious. If you enjoyed what you saw, please check out our other video where Bebop breaks down how to fix Bleach. I won't bother you with asking for the obvious, so instead, I'd also like to invite you to our website, Wrightly So. If you liked how analytical this was, you'll love our articles, and we even have a video that you can only watch on our site. Check it out in the description, or just type in wrightlyso.com in your URL. Thank you again, and have a nice day.